Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a totally fascinating and, frankly, absolutely crucial economic paradox that affects millions of us. It's a topic that grabs a lot of headlines, but today we're cutting through all the noise. We're going to dig into the hard data to solve the mystery of the shrinking Social Security check. Now, you might be wondering, wait a second, don't retirees get regular raises? And you'd be absolutely right, they do. But despite those increases, a lot of seniors are actually feeling poorer year after year. Let's find out exactly why that is.
So here is the central mystery we are looking at today. If Social Security benefits go up every single year, why do retirees feel poorer? Just to put this into perspective, between the years 2010 and 2024, Social Security cost of living adjustments actually bumped up benefits by 58%. I mean, on paper, that sounds like a huge win, right? But the reality is, this exact same period resulted in a massive loss of real-world buying power for retirees. The math on the government check just doesn't seem to match the math at the grocery store checkout line, where the exact same cart of food costs way more than it used to.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the roadmap we'll use to solve this economic mystery together. First, the benefit squeeze. Then, understanding the COLA, losing buying power, the Medicare trap, the 1983 reform legacy, and finally, the future of solvency. Part 1. The benefit squeeze. Expectation versus reality. 20%. It is a staggering statistic. According to research by the Senior Citizens League, seniors' benefits have lost 20% of their buying power value since 2010. Let that sink in for a second. To put that into real, actionable dollars, average payments for retired workers would need to rise by about $370 every single month just to rebuild that lost value and catch up to where they were over a decade ago. Imagine trying to stretch your current budget with $370 missing every single month. That's the reality for today's retirees.
Moving on to Part 2, understanding the COLA, the math behind the raise.
Now, as you probably know, COLA stands for Cost of Living Adjustment. It's an automatic annual increase introduced back in 1975, and it's calculated using an index known as the CPI-W to match inflation. What's actually kind of wild is that before 1975, it literally took an act of Congress to get an irregular benefit increase, so the automatic COLA was meant to provide some predictable relief. But here's the catch. The CPI-W tracks urban wage earners. That means it's measuring things like commuting costs and gasoline rather than the skyrocketing healthcare and housing costs that actually dominate a retiree's budget.
Take 2022 as a prime example of this formula's flaw. We saw a historically high COLA of 5.9%, but that very same year, actual inflation hit 7.0%. The raise was essentially dead on arrival. Despite getting a historically huge boost to their checks, seniors were immediately put 1.1 percentage points behind the actual rate of inflation for the year. And honestly, 8 of the last 15 COLAs have completely failed to surpass inflation.
Section 3. Losing buying power. Where does the money go?
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's eating up the budget faster than that 3.9% average annual COLA can cover. Since 2010, the cost of an average smartphone, which, let's face it, is an absolute necessity for modern communication and telehealth, is up over 300%. Used car prices, they've more than doubled. And the real heavy hitter here is housing and real estate taxes, which are up 89%. Why does that last one matter so much? Because according to the CPI for the elderly, housing makes up nearly 50% of a typical senior's budget. These essential costs are just completely outpacing the growth of their Social Security checks.
Which brings us to Part 4, the Medicare trap, the invisible deduction.
There is another hidden culprit here that silently erodes the COLA increase before the check even arrives in the mail. It's a mechanism called the hold harmless provision, and 2018 is the perfect case study. Hold harmless is basically designed to protect seniors from having their actual checks decrease when Medicare Part B premiums go up faster than the COLA. In 2018, there was a 2% COLA increase, but at the same time, the Medicare Part B premium rose to $134 a month. Because of previous years of flat or just tiny COLAs, this sudden spike in the Part B premium effectively swallowed that entire 2% COLA for about 50% of all retirees. Half of all seniors saw essentially zero increase in their actual take-home check simply because the Medicare premium ate the raise first.
Section 5. The 1983 Reform Legacy. Fixing the 80s, squeezing the 20s.
Let's walk through this timeline to understand how we got here. In the late 1970s, runaway inflation and slow wage growth triggered an immediate, really severe funding crisis for Social Security. Fast forward to 1981, and large near-term cuts were proposed, but they were quickly rejected by Congress. The whole issue got passed to the Greenspan Commission, which actually missed its December 1982 deadline.
What followed was this dramatic, midnight hour, behind-closed-doors negotiation that led to the 1983 bipartisan compromise. Now, this compromise successfully saved the system from immediate insolvency, sure, but as we'll see, it also left a demographic time bomb for future retirees. So what did that 1983 compromise actually do for long-term solvency? Well, it took a few specific steps. Step 1, it delayed the upcoming COLA by 6 months. Step 2, it introduced taxation on benefits for upper-income retirees, which obviously acts as a reduction in net income. And Step 3, which is the most impactful, it gradually raised the full benefit retirement age from 65 to 67. And it is absolutely crucial to understand that raising the retirement age acts mathematically as a permanent, across-the-board benefit cut, no matter what age a person decides to claim their benefits.
When we look at impartial analysis from the National Academy of Social Insurance, the reality of those 1983 reforms becomes pretty clear. While it's often hailed as this perfectly balanced political compromise, the data shows that the long-term fix was actually achieved primarily through benefit cuts, rather than by adding new contribution revenues to balance it all out. The short-term crisis was balanced, absolutely, but the long-term shortfall was bridged by reducing what retirees would eventually receive.
To put some numbers to that, when you look at the impact on long-term 75-year solvency, a staggering 70% of the savings came directly from net benefit reductions affecting beneficiaries. 20% came from extending coverage to new workers, and only 10% came from actual contribution or tax increases. So the squeeze beneficiaries are feeling today, it's partly a direct mathematical result of the policy choices that were made 4 decades ago.
Finally, Section 6. The future of solvency, the 2033 deadline.
The stark reality is staring us right in the face. 2033. According to the Social Security Administration's actuaries, without congressional action, the system's trust funds will be entirely insolvent by the year 2033. If that happens, the law dictates an automatic 23% cut in benefits across the board. Imagine the loss of buying power we were just talking about, but compounded by an immediate 23% reduction in the actual check amount. It's a massive financial cliff for millions of Americans.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is that despite all the intense political division in America right now, there's a striking bipartisan consensus on the solution. When folks are asked if they support preserving Social Security, even if it means paying more in taxes, 93% of Democrats, 85% of independents, and 81% of Republicans agree. In an era of intense polarization, there is an overwhelming, unified public willingness to pay more to protect the system.
Which leaves us with this final, massive question. With the 2033 insolvency deadline looming closer every single day, how will Congress bridge the gap between the overwhelming public demand to protect the system and the stark financial reality of the balance sheet? It's an immense political and economic challenge. I really hope this explainer has given you a much clearer, structured look at the math, the history, and the future behind your shrinking Social Security check. Keep learning, keep asking the big questions, and thanks so much for diving into this with me today.